Hi, I'm Michael P. Coleman, Content Director for Brother Be Well. Thanking you for checking out this Parents and Caregiver series brought to you by Blue Shield of California's Blue Sky Initiative. I would think next, and let me know again if I'm a little off here, but next you might want to interview potential in-network mental health clinicians and therapists. If I'm right about that, can you suggest specific questions for parents and caregivers that they might want to ask? I'm thinking, we all have that gut feeling. Sometimes when we meet someone, I know I do. If I meet a doctor or a new therapist, I can tell pretty quickly if this is going to work or if there's at least the potential for it to work. But other than that gut feeling, how will a parent or caregiver know when they've got the right fit?
I'm going to tell you a quick story, Michael, because it's so funny. I feel like I'm a pretty savvy health consumer and probably a horrible patient because I'm kind of a know it all. And I went through three mental health professionals until I found my person. And the very first person I went to, I sat through the whole session and I said, you're really nice and today was delightful, but I'm going to be overbearing with you. I need someone that's able to deal with my personality and get me in line. And I was like, I feel like you don't have that ability. And then I also realized after the second person that racial concordance was important to me. It was important for me to have someone from my community and culture, that we had some of the similarities where I don't have to explain all the jargon or things I say, or my experience as a woman, my experience as an African American woman. And so I realized, like, oh, these things actually are important because someone that's not from my culture may not have the same lived experience. So, boom, I landed this wonderful African American woman that can get me in line and have me thinking about things in a way I need to. But I realized along the way what was important to me and I took note. So, with that being said, be patient. Um, Research the providers ahead of time to see where they're from, where they went to school, what they say their interests are. If you find that you're someone like me, where having the cultural background tied together just makes sense or makes you feel more at ease, then you may want to seek out people that share some of the same cultural beliefs, whether it be race, ethnicity, religious background. All those things are usually shared in profiles of providers. So do a little homework beforehand. And I'd say try to start with the best match you think you can make, and then don't get discouraged if it takes a couple of times to figure it out. Because you just don't know until you know. Like I said, that first person was really delightful, but I just knew I was going to challenge her at every turn because, like I said, I know my personality. So I needed someone that could, handle that. So just be mindful to do your homework and know that it may not be a match made in heaven. I had one therapist in my life that we totally clicked like the first time we met. And I was with her for a long time until she retired, but then I had to start back over. I didn't get discouraged. I said, you know what? Let me do my research. Let me give people a try. And then, and once you know yourself, you know what to look for. It helps you continue to pick providers if you do have to change in the future.
I've got to ask you this question. How did that therapist take that when you said that? I feel like that every time I talk to you, Cherie. I can feel that personality. I get a little nervous when it's time for us to talk because I know you're going to get me straight. So I'm just curious about how that therapist was the therapist throwing it all? Not that it really matters because people need to be asking questions and advocating for themselves. You felt teaches that here on this Brother Be Well platform, but I'm just curious, how did that therapist take it?
That's actually exactly what she said, Michael, because not only did I tell her that I didn't think we were a personality match, I said, I think it's really important that I have someone that's African American, the African American woman in particular. This person was Asian American, and she commended me for advocating for my care. She totally understood. And she gave me some referrals of other professionals in her arena that she knew that met the criteria I was looking for. And no harm, no foul.
Yeah. The reason I asked, it's great to hear. The reason I asked, I think people like you or me don't have any problem saying, this isn't going to work. I won't bore
Mm-hmm.
you with my story. I got a story similar to yours. You got to really advocate for yourself and not care so much about someone else's feelings. But I know for some people listening and watching that might not be quite as assertive or extroverted, or that potential conflict might come a little hard for them. So I just wanted you to share that it wasn't the end of the world for the therapist either, and they actually commended you for that. So appreciate you sharing the story. Let's now talk about or discuss a few tips for navigating that mental health system once we're in it. So you've checked out your plan, you've talked to your doctor, you've interviewed some therapists, you've made it the right pick, and you're in that system. First of all, I would think that family involvement could be crucial. It's also a little dicey because maybe some family issues are what wound you up in the system. So I want to ask you about family involvement generally. Is it as crucial as I think it is? And even more broadly, maybe what role does or can family play in that continuum of care that we've been talking
Right. So as we talked about many times before with stigma, family's a double-edged sword. It's kind of like they tell you salt to taste. So you know your folks. If you have someone that is not in alignment with where you are and you think will hinder your ability to seek out the care that you need, that may not be the person to bring along, or this may not be the point in which you bring them along. Maybe you dip your toe in the water and gain some confidence to be able to bring your family along, because it is important, because you are going to have a new approach to life once you start to take advantage of those mental health services. And you will also need support, and people do need to understand what support looks like around you. So, family being involved is really important, but family being involved in a therapeutic, helpful way is also just as important. So, be a good judge of who's ready to jump in and help or not, or when, or build up some of your coping skills and ability to make boundaries, to set boundaries before you invite those folks to come along. And they'll notice that it's a new you and you kind of navigate things a little differently. And as you build that confidence, then you're able to advocate for yourself, even with your family. Doesn't sound, uh, it's not as easy as it's said to happen, right? But you can do it. And especially as you build your own skills, you can do it.
Yeah, you can absolutely do it. I'm reminded of a time where you mentioned setting boundaries, and I remember with one particular family member, it was hard for me to set boundaries, and I ultimately decided that again, this was about my care, not theirs. And I had done
Mhm.
too much work with my therapist, but the first time that that person encountered that boundary, it was a little shocking. They were a little surprised, and I just said, you know what? This is a new version of Michael P. Coleman. We're not doing that anymore, and it kind of transformed that relationship. But you got to really know yourself, do the work, and then I love that term to keep in mind: set those boundaries and know, to paraphrase you, know when to invite them and when not to, know when to hold them and know when to fold them is the phrase I like to use. So really appreciate that, Cherie. Caregivers, I know, and this is part of the parent and caregiver series, they should work on strengthening the relationship with their primary caregiver. Why is that so important when we're talking about mental health care?
Right. So that's the person that's at the helm, right? They're guiding the ship of your care, holding in all of those bits and pieces that make up your individual needs. So you want to make sure that you have a good relationship you can reach out to. Like I told you before, the better your primary care provider knows you and your situation, the better equipped they are to provide care for you and also to refer you to the proper care that you may need. And you never know. Like one example that happens often is when it comes down to prescription refills, right? If you are seeing your primary care often, but let's say you're seeing a psychiatrist for other medication, there could be an emergency where it ran out or you have a need When the primary care provider feels confident that they know the care plan, they're in touch with your other providers. Sometimes they can fill in on that provider's behalf or help expedite that happening. So keeping everyone in the loop so that you can get the care that you need when you need it is very vital. When you never see your doctor and then something urgently comes up, and you're calling, you have a need, and they're trying to look through the chart and they don't really know you, from anyone else, and they haven't seen you in a while, it really prevents them from helping you to their full ability. So it's really important to keep them in the loop and with anyone that's involved in your care so that they know who they could talk to. And when it comes to caregivers, especially family members, oftentimes people think like, oh, well, this is my son, my daughter, my cousin, my aunt, I should be able to get information. Also, make sure that you complete an advanced healthcare directive or a release of information so that you allow your primary care provider or your mental health provider or any of the hospital staff to talk to that person on your behalf. You can give them permission. It's just a quick document. They have them everywhere that just says, yes, you could talk to this person about my healthcare so that they can call on your behalf when you can't call for yourself.
Yeah, that's so important, and I have just learned of those. I'm lucky enough not to have had to deal with a mental health crisis situation, at least in my family. But I would imagine that without doing that, there are HIPAA laws and all kinds of regulations that would prohibit a healthcare provider from sharing that information with someone that's genuinely in the corner of the person seeking care.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. I understand, Cherie, that finding an advocate within the system to be a point person, and it's kind of related to what we were just talking about, to coordinate and facilitate that care is important, especially if there are multiple services, maybe, or even multiple providers involved. Can you speak to the importance of that, finding an advocate within the system?
Yeah, so social workers, case managers, and then sometimes even the medical assistants or nurses that work with your provider in your provider's office, find out who that point person is and how to contact them and understand that. And the best way of contacting them. Do they like you to use? Maybe they have a patient portal with an email function, or they have a phone number with a voicemail that you can leave. So find that information out so that you can minimize your stress. We've all called the number, you get the automation, you're punching zero, no one's coming on, and you get frustrated. So figuring out the easiest way to get the quickest response and then following that through and which persons are on your team that are available to help. And sometimes it may not even be someone in the department, but someone that works for the healthcare organization that you can have a point person, like I said, case manager or social worker or nurses, medical assistants, psych techs, people that are on the healthcare team that may be tied to your provider's team. And so find that information out. I always tell people, is there someone that I can talk to directly, or what's the easiest way to get in contact with someone here if I have a question? Ask those types of questions in the beginning so that you have a straight pathway and decrease your frustration when you actually need the care and then you're trying to figure it out.
This final question, Cherie, I didn't mean to be so rhetorical when I drafted it, but based on some of what you've already taught us, I know what your answer is going to be, and I almost never get to say that I know what your answer is going to be. Getting the proper diagnosis up front and then understanding that diagnosis are critical. Should parents and caregivers be reticent at all about asking questions and, if necessary, getting a second opinion? If they hear something that doesn't sound right, should they be at all reticent about saying, I'm going to go check with somebody else and confirm that, or maybe get that second opinion?
Oh, I'm all for second opinions. If you don't feel absolutely comfortable and informed by your provider, then that is grounds to ask for a second opinion. But I would also encourage you to be a good advocate for yourself, as I mentioned many times before, looking up questions ahead of time, writing them down, making sure that what you need to know you really get out of the appointment. But absolutely, second opinions are great for that, and advocate for yourself. If something doesn't feel right, you are an expert. You are an expert on you. If something isn't gelling, advocate for yourself and get the help that you need. And then understand that sometimes it's just not a good fit. It could be a personality mismatch. It could be, you know, there's different generations in the workforce now. So sometimes there's just, you don't click as well with someone. So if something is not working, don't be afraid to do something else.
Cherie Kreiner, I would never, ever want to be your therapist. I'm glad I'm your friend and your colleague, and I'm not a mental health clinician, but I would not want to be. Before
Me
I let you
either.
go, I really want to thank you, Cherie Kreiner, registered nurse and vice president of the Capital City Black Nurses Association. Thank you for walking us through this talk, for your time, your care. Really appreciate talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
We'll see you next time. And I want to thank somebody else for this conversation, our sponsor, Blue Shield of California's Blue Sky Initiative. That initiative boosts access to mental health support. You can learn all about that fantastic program at this website, bluesky.blueshieldca.com. That's bluesky.blueshieldca.com. Another website I've got to tell you about before you get away from us, brotherbewell.com. You can find out all about topics just like this one via videos like this one, audio podcasts, print pieces, all kinds of links to resources, all designed to help brothers be well. Who are those brothers? Boys and men of color, 13 and up, African American, Latinx, Asian and Pacific Islander, Native and Indigenous, and the LGBTQIA plus communities that inform and enhance and enrich those cultural communities. It's all there at that website, brotherbewell.com. We're a membership supported service, but guess what? The memberships are complimentary right now. So you can sign up to be a Brother Be Well member for absolutely, I should say, for free. Do it all at brotherbewell.com. While you're there, make sure you sign up for the blog, give us your email address, and then you'll start to get notifications 2 or 3 times a week when videos just like this one go live. So the website for all of that, do it, brotherbewell.com. My name, Michael P. Coleman. I'm content director for Brother Be Well, and I want to ask you to do 2 quick things for me. You know what they are. Take great care of yourself, and then reach out, take great care of somebody else. Till next time, bye-bye.